Adrian Vale discovered his billionaire wife's pregnancy was impossible because he'd been medically sterile since childhood. The woman he trusted had been living a secret life, and in one devastating morning, every suspicious text message, every late-night business trip, and every cold shoulder suddenly made perfect sense. His marriage was built on lies, and now he had to decide whether to explode or disappear. If you want to see how a single father survives the ultimate betrayal and finds his way back from nothing, stay with me until the end. And please, hit that like button and drop a comment telling me what city you're watching from. I love seeing how far these stories travel. Adrian Vale woke at 5:47 a.m. to the sound of his 6-year-old son Liam coughing in the next room. He rolled out of bed quietly, careful not to disturb Celeste, who slept facing the wall with her silk eye mask pulled down tight. The hardwood floor was cold under his bare feet as he padded down the hallway of their southeast Portland home, a renovated Craftsman they'd bought 2 years ago when things still felt right between them. Liam was sitting up in bed, rubbing his eyes with small fists. His dinosaur pajamas were twisted around his skinny frame. "Hey, buddy," Adrian whispered, crouching beside the bed. "You okay?" "My throat hurts." Adrian pressed the back of his hand against Liam's forehead, warm but not burning. "Let me get you some water." Whoa. He walked downstairs to the kitchen, filled a glass from the filtered pitcher in the fridge, and brought it back up. Liam drank half of it in 3 gulps, then handed it back and flopped against his pillow. "Try to sleep a little more," Adrian said softly. "I'll check on you before I leave for work." "Is Mom awake?" "Not yet." Liam turned on his side without another word. Adrian pulled the blanket up over his shoulder and stood there for a moment, watching his son's breathing slow. 6 years old and already so quiet, so careful not to ask for too much. Adrian recognized that quality because he'd learned it young too, growing up with a father who drank and a mother who worked 3 jobs just to keep them fed. He walked back to the master bedroom and stopped in the doorway. Celeste hadn't moved. Her dark hair fanned across the pillow, one bare shoulder visible above the expensive sheets she'd ordered from some boutique in New York. She looked peaceful in sleep, untouchable, like a photograph. Adrian had fallen in love with her 3 years ago at a charity gala he'd been dragged to by a colleague. She'd been standing near the bar in a midnight blue dress, laughing at something a city councilman said, and when she turned and met Adrian's eyes across the room, everything else disappeared. She was brilliant, successful, terrifyingly beautiful, and somehow, impossibly, she'd chosen him. He still didn't understand why. Adrian showered, dressed in jeans and a flannel shirt, and went downstairs to make coffee. The house was silent, except for the hum of the refrigerator and the distant sound of rain starting to tap against the windows. He liked these early mornings alone, liked the stillness before the day cracked open and demanded things from him. He was pouring his second cup when he heard footsteps on the stairs. Celeste appeared in the kitchen doorway, wearing a white silk robe, her hair pulled into a loose knot at the base of her neck. She looked radiant, glowing even, and for a second Adrian felt that old pull in his chest, the disbelief that she was real, that she was his. "Morning," she said, crossing to the counter. Her voice was light, almost musical. "Morning. Want coffee?" "No." She smiled, a secretive kind of smile that made Adrian pause mid-pour. "I can't." He set the pot down carefully. "You feeling okay?" "I'm perfect." She leaned against the counter, arms crossed loosely over her chest, and her smile widened. "Actually, I have something to tell you." Adrian's pulse kicked up without permission. There was something in her tone, something bright and expectant that made his stomach tighten. "What is it?" Isa. Celeste took a breath, almost laughing. "I'm pregnant." The words landed like stones dropped into deep water. Adrian heard them, felt them sink, but couldn't quite process their weight. He stood there holding the coffee pot, staring at his wife, while the rain drummed harder against the glass. "You're... what?" "Pregnant." She laughed now, a real laugh, full of relief and excitement. "I know. I can't believe it either. I took 3 tests yesterday just to be sure." Adrian set the coffee pot down because his hands were shaking. That's not possible." Her smile faltered. "What do you mean?" "I mean it's not possible." His voice came out flat, almost mechanical. "I can't have kids, Celeste. You know that." She blinked, confusion flickering across her face. "What are you talking about?" "I told you." He could hear his heartbeat now, a dull thud in his ears. "When we first started dating, I had mumps when I was 12. It caused complications. The doctors said I'd never be able to father children." Celeste's face went pale. Her mouth opened, closed. "You never—" "I did." Adrian's voice cracked. "I told you before we got married. You said it was fine. You said Liam was enough. I don't." She shook her head slowly, backing up a step. "Adrian, that doesn't make sense. Maybe the doctors were wrong. Maybe they weren't wrong." But he felt something cold spreading through his chest, something dark and final. "I'm sterile, Celeste. I have been since I was a kid." The kitchen went silent except for the rain. Celeste stared at him, her hand moving unconsciously to her stomach, and Adrian watched her face shift through a dozen emotions in the span of seconds. Shock, fear, guilt. Guilt. That's when he knew. "Who is he?" Adrian's voice barely rose above a whisper. "What? Who's the father?" "Adrian, you're not—" She stopped, her voice breaking. "You're not thinking clearly. This is a lot to process, I know. But who is he?" Celeste's eyes filled with tears. She looked away, toward the window, and for a long moment she didn't speak. When she finally did, her voice was so quiet, Adrian almost didn't hear it. "It doesn't matter." Something inside Adrian snapped, not loudly, not with rage or violence. It snapped the way a cable snaps under too much weight, clean and final and irreversible. "Get out," he said. Celeste's head whipped around. "What?" "Get out of this house. Adrian, please. Now." She took a step toward him, hand outstretched, but Adrian turned his back and walked out of the kitchen. He didn't trust himself to stay in the same room with her. Didn't trust what might come out of his mouth if he kept looking at her face. He climbed the stairs, went into Liam's room and closed the door behind him. His son was still asleep, curled on his side with one hand tucked under his pillow. Adrian sat down on the edge of the bed and pressed his palms against his knees, trying to steady his breathing. Downstairs, he heard Celeste moving around. A door opened, closed. The garage door rumbled to life. Her car started, reversed out of the driveway, and disappeared down the street. And then the house was silent again. Adrian didn't go to work that day. He called in sick, made Liam breakfast, and drove him to school without saying much. Liam asked once if his mom was okay, and Adrian told him she had an early meeting. It was easier than the truth. After drop-off, Adrian drove aimlessly through Portland's rain-soaked streets, past the bridges and the food carts and the old brick buildings he'd spent years learning to love. His phone buzzed repeatedly in the cup holder, texts from Celeste probably, or calls he wasn't ready to answer. He ended up at a coffee shop in Selwood, a quiet place with mismatched furniture and local art on the walls. He ordered black coffee and sat in the corner booth, staring at nothing. The waitress, a woman in her 50s with graying hair pulled into a braid, refilled his cup without asking. "Rough morning?" she asked. Adrian looked up. "Something like that." She nodded, like she understood, and moved on to the next table. Adrian pulled out his phone. 11 missed calls, 14 text messages. He scrolled through them slowly. "Celeste. Adrian, please. We need to talk." Celeste. "I know you're hurt, I understand, but shutting me out isn't going to help." Celeste. "Please just call me back." He deleted them all without responding. Then he opened his browser and searched for divorce attorneys in Portland. Wars. Over the next 2 weeks, Adrian moved through his life like a ghost. He went to work, picked Liam up from school, made dinners, helped with homework. He smiled when he needed to smile, nodded when people spoke to him, and kept everything locked down tight where no one could see it. Celeste tried to come home twice. The first time, Adrian refused to let her in. The second time, she used her key while he was at work and packed 3 suitcases worth of clothes. She left a note on the kitchen counter. "I'm staying at the Nines downtown. I'll give you space, but we have to talk eventually. For Liam's sake, if nothing else." Adrian crumpled the note and threw it away. His colleague at the architecture firm, Marcus, noticed something was wrong during a project meeting. "You good, man?" Marcus asked afterward, catching Adrian in the hallway. "Yeah, just tired." You sure? You look like hell. Adrian forced a smile. I'm fine. Just dealing with some stuff at home. Marcus didn't push, but Adrian could see the concern in his eyes. He appreciated it and resented it in equal measure. At night, after Liam went to bed, Adrian sat alone in the living room with the lights off and tried to make sense of what had happened. He replayed every moment of the past 3 years, every argument, every late night Celeste spent at the office, every time she'd pulled away when he tried to touch her. The signs had been there. He just hadn't wanted to see them. One night, sitting in the dark with a glass of whiskey he wasn't drinking, Adrian's phone buzzed with a new message. Not from Celeste this time. Unknown. Number. You don't know me, but I think you should. Meet me tomorrow at 2 p.m. Powell's Books, coffee shop section. Come alone. Adrian stared at the message for a full minute before typing back. Adrian. Who is this? The response came immediately. Unknown number. Someone who knows what your wife has been doing. Botis. Bulky. Adrian arrived at Powell's City of Books 15 minutes early. The place was massive, a full city block of new and used books stacked floor to ceiling, and the coffee shop sat tucked in one corner on the main level. He ordered an Americano he didn't want, and sat at a small table near the window, watching people browse the shelves. At exactly 2 p.m., a man walked in. Mid-40s, graying at the temples, expensive suit that didn't quite fit the casual atmosphere of a Portland bookstore. He spotted Adrian immediately and crossed the room with deliberate steps. Adrian Vale? Adrian nodded. The man sat down without asking permission. My name is Richard Klein. I'm a private investigator. Adrian's stomach dropped. I didn't hire you. Ich all I know. Someone else did. Richard pulled a manila folder from his briefcase and set it on the table between them. Your wife hired me 6 months ago to follow someone she thought was embezzling from her company. What does that have to do with me? Nothing. And everything. Richard pushed the folder toward Adrian. Open it. Adrian hesitated, then flipped the folder open. Inside were photographs, dozens of them. Celeste in a hotel lobby. Celeste getting into a car with a man Adrian didn't recognize. Celeste and the same man entering a restaurant, sitting close, laughing. Celeste kissing him outside a downtown condo building. Adrian's hands went numb. Who is he? Ichal. His name is Evan Holt, CFO, at a tech startup downtown. Married, 2 kids. Richard leaned back in his chair. Your wife hired me to investigate someone else, but I'm not an idiot. I saw what was happening. I thought you deserved to know. Why? Adrian's voice came out hoarse. Why would you tell me this? Richard's expression softened. Because I've been where you are. And nobody told me until it was too late. Adrian closed the folder carefully, like it might explode if handled wrong. How long? 8 months, give or take, maybe longer. Hard to say when it started. 8 months. Adrian tried to do the math in his head, tried to remember what 8 months ago looked like, but everything blurred together. Does she know you're here? Adrian asked. No, and I'd appreciate it if you didn't tell her. Richard stood, straightening his jacket. That folder is yours. Do whatever you want with it. But if you're smart, you'll get a lawyer before you do anything else. He walked out without another word. Adrian sat there for 20 minutes, staring at the closed folder on the table. Around him, people browsed books and sipped coffee and lived their normal lives, completely unaware that his was falling apart. Finally, he picked up the folder, walked out of the bookstore, and drove home. What? That night, after Liam was asleep, Adrian spread the photographs across the dining room table. He studied each one carefully, committing every detail to memory. The way Celeste smiled at Evan Holt, the way she leaned into him, the way her hand rested on his arm. She looked happy, happier than she'd looked with Adrian in months, maybe years. He picked up his phone and called the divorce attorney he'd contacted 2 weeks earlier. Mr. Vale, the attorney said, picking up on the second ring. I was hoping I'd hear from you. I'm ready to move forward, Adrian said quietly, but I need your help with something first. For the next month, Adrian played the part of a man trying to salvage his marriage. He answered Celeste's calls. He agreed to meet her for coffee. He listened while she cried and apologized and swore the affair was over, that it had been a mistake, that she loved him and wanted to fix things. He nodded. He said he needed time. He asked her to be patient. And while she waited, Adrian gathered every piece of evidence he could find. Bank statements showing cash withdrawals she couldn't explain, credit card receipts from hotels and restaurants, text messages she'd deleted but that still lived in the cloud backup he'd quietly accessed. His attorney was impressed. "This is good," she said during their third meeting. "Very good. Oregon is a no-fault divorce state, so infidelity won't affect the settlement much. But this kind of documentation helps if she tries to fight for custody or assets." "She won't fight for custody," Adrian said. "Liam isn't her biological son. She adopted him when we got married, but she never bonded with him. Not really." The attorney made a note. "And the pregnancy?" "All right. Bam. Bam." "Not mine." Adrian's voice was flat. "I have medical records proving I'm sterile. If she tries to claim otherwise, I'll demand a paternity test." "Understood." Adrian left the meeting feeling nothing. Not anger, not sadness, just a hollow, echoing emptiness where something vital used to be. 6 weeks after Celeste announced her pregnancy, Adrian filed for divorce. He had the papers delivered to her office downtown at 10 a.m. on a Tuesday, right in the middle of a board meeting. He knew the timing would humiliate her, knew it would hurt. He did it anyway. She called him 3 minutes later, her voice shaking with rage. "What the hell is this?" "It's a divorce petition." "Celeste, I thought that was obvious." "You couldn't even tell me to my face? Like you told me about Evan Holt." Silence. "Yeah," Adrian said quietly. "I know. I've known for a while." Her voice cracked. "Adrian, please, don't do this. It's already done." "We can fix this. I'll do anything." "There's nothing to fix." He hung up before she could say anything else. His hands were shaking. He sat down on the edge of his bed and pressed his palms against his knees, waiting for the adrenaline to fade. It didn't. Chat. The divorce moved faster than Adrian expected. Celeste didn't fight it. She signed the papers, agreed to the terms, and moved out of the state entirely within 3 months. She sent one email before she left. "I'm sorry, Adrian, for everything. I hope someday you can forgive me." He deleted it without responding. Liam took the separation hard. He didn't understand why Celeste was gone, why she didn't call or visit. Adrian tried to explain in terms a 6-year-old could grasp, but there were no good words for it. "Sometimes people make mistakes," Adrian said one night while tucking Liam into bed. "And sometimes those mistakes mean they can't stay. Did I make a mistake?" Liam asked, his voice small. Adrian's heart cracked. "Nobody. Never. This has nothing to do with you." "Then why did she leave us?" Adrian didn't have an answer. Work became Adrian's escape. He took on a massive project, a community center for low-income families in North Portland, and threw himself into it with an intensity that bordered on obsession. He stayed late at the office, sketched designs at home, revised plans until his eyes burned. Marcus noticed. "You're going to burn out, man." "I'm fine." "You're not fine. You haven't been fine in months." Adrian looked up from his drafting table. "What do you want me to say, Marcus? My wife cheated on me, got pregnant with another man's kid, and then left. I'm doing the best I can." Marcus softened. "I know, I'm just worried about you." "Don't be." But the truth was, Adrian was worried about himself too. He was angry all the time now. Angry at Celeste, angry at Evan Holt, angry at the universe for breaking him again just when he thought he'd finally built something solid. He went to the gym and ran until his legs gave out. He went hiking alone in Forest Park, pushing himself up steep trails until his lungs burned. He did anything to exhaust the rage. It never worked. 4 months after the divorce was finalized, Adrian met Naomi Pierce. It wasn't romantic, not at first. She was the landscape architect assigned to work on the community center project, and their first meeting was contentious. She hated his initial design, said it didn't flow with the natural surroundings, that he was imposing structure where there should be harmony. "I'm an architect," Adrian said coolly. "Structure is kind of my job." "Ma." "And I'm a landscape architect," Naomi shot back. "Harmony is mine." They argued for an hour before finally agreeing to compromise. When the meeting ended, Adrian walked out feeling oddly energized. It had been months since anyone challenged him like that. Their second meeting went smoother. Naomi brought revised sketches that integrated her vision with his design, and Adrian had to admit, grudgingly, that she was right. The project looked better with her touch. "See?" she said, smiling. "Wasn't so hard to admit I'm brilliant, was it?" Adrian almost smiled back. Almost. They started meeting regularly to coordinate the project. Coffee shops, mostly, or walking tours of the construction site. Naomi was sharp, funny, unafraid to call Adrian out when he was being stubborn. She also didn't ask about his personal life, which he appreciated. One rainy afternoon, 6 weeks into the project, they sat in a food cart pod near the office, eating tacos and watching the rain. "So," Naomi said casually, "you ever going to tell me why you look like someone kicked your dog every time you think no one's watching?" Adrian looked at her. "That obvious? Only to people paying attention." He sighed. "Messy divorce." "Ah." She nodded like that explained everything. "Kids?" "One. My son, Liam. He's 7 now." "How's he handling it?" "Better than I am, probably." Naomi took another bite of her taco, chewing thoughtfully. "Divorce is brutal. I went through one about 5 years ago. No kids, but still. It rips you apart." Adrian hadn't expected that. "I'm sorry." "Don't be. Best thing that ever happened to me, honestly. Hurt like hell at the time, but looking back, I dodged a bullet." "You ever talk to him now?" "Nope, clean break. He moved to Seattle, I stayed here, and that was that." She crumpled her napkin and tossed it in the trash. "Took me about 2 years to stop being angry, though. That's the hard part. Letting go of the anger." Adrian stared down at his half-eaten taco. "Yeah. You'll get there," Naomi said quietly. "Just takes time." Over the following months, Adrian and Naomi's professional relationship shifted into something closer to friendship. They grabbed lunch between meetings, texted each other design ideas at odd hours, met up on weekends to hike Forest Park or explore new trails in the gorge. Naomi was easy to be around. She didn't demand anything from Adrian, didn't push him to talk about things he wasn't ready to discuss. She just existed beside him, steady and real and uncomplicated. One Saturday in late spring, they hiked up to Angel's Rest, a brutal climb that left them both breathless and sweating by the time they reached the summit. They sat on the rocks overlooking the Columbia River, passing a water bottle back and forth. "You ever think about starting over?" Naomi asked suddenly. Adrian glanced at her. "What do you mean?" "I don't know, just leaving, going somewhere new, reinventing yourself. I've got Liam. Can't just pick up and leave." "Fair." She pulled her knees up to her chest, resting her chin on them. "I think about it sometimes, though. What it would be like to just disappear. Start fresh where nobody knows your history. Sounds lonely." "Maybe." She smiled a little. "Or maybe it sounds like freedom." They sat in silence for a while, watching hawks circle above the river. Adrian felt something shift inside him, something small and fragile, like the first crack in a frozen lake. "I don't know if I'm ready for freedom yet," he said quietly. Naomi looked at him. "That's okay. It'll wait." By the time autumn arrived, the community center was nearly finished. Adrian walked through the half-built structure one evening after the crew had left, admiring the way light filtered through the high windows, the way the space felt open and welcoming. This project had saved him. He knew that now. Naomi found him standing in the main hall, hands in his pockets, staring up at the ceiling. "Looks good," she said, coming to stand beside him. "Yeah, it does." "You should be proud." "I am." He hesitated. "Thanks for everything. I know I haven't been the easiest person to work with." Naomi laughed. "That's an understatement." Adrian smiled, a real smile this time. "I mean it. This project, these past few months, I don't think I would have made it without you." She looked at him for a long moment, something unreadable in her expression. Then she reached out and squeezed his hand briefly before letting go. "You would have made it," she said, "but I'm glad I was here anyway." That night, Back at home, Adrian received an email he wasn't expecting. It was from Celeste's attorney. Mr. Vale, I'm writing on behalf of my client, Celeste Laurent, regarding a matter of some urgency. Miss Laurent recently gave birth to a daughter, Emma Laurent, on October 14th. Due to medical complications following the birth, Ms. Laurent has been hospitalized and is facing an extended recovery period. She has requested that I reach out to you to arrange a meeting so that you may meet Emma before Ms. Laurent relocates permanently to Europe for health reasons. She believes this would provide closure for both of you. Please let me know at your earliest convenience if you would be willing to meet. Sincerely, Jennifer Hartwell, Esquire. Adrian read the email 3 times, his chest tightening with each pass. Celeste had the baby, a daughter, and now she was asking him to meet her. He closed his laptop and sat in the dark kitchen, listening to the hum of the refrigerator and the distant sound of Liam's white noise machine upstairs. Part of him wanted to ignore the email, to delete it and move on with his life. But another part, the part that still remembered loving Celeste, the part that still carried the weight of their shared history, wondered if maybe closure was exactly what he needed. He didn't respond that night, or the next, but the email stayed with him, gnawing at the edges of his carefully rebuilt peace. Adrian spent 3 days staring at the email before he finally told someone about it. Not Marcus, not his attorney. He told Naomi. They were sitting on the steps outside the community center after a long day of overseeing electrical work. The November air had turned sharp, and Naomi wrapped her hands around a paper cup of coffee from the food cart down the block. "So what are you going to do?" she asked after Adrian finished explaining. "I don't know. Do you want to see the baby?" Adrian looked down at his own coffee, watching steam curl up from the lid. "I don't know that either." Naomi was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "Can I be honest with you? Always. I think part of you does want to see her. Otherwise, you would have deleted that email the second it came in." Adrian's jaw tightened. "Maybe. But you're scared. Wouldn't you be?" Naomi nodded slowly. "Yeah, I would be." She took a sip of her coffee. "The question isn't whether you're scared, though. It's whether you can live with not knowing." "Not knowing what?" "What it feels like to have real closure. Not the kind you tell yourself you have, but the kind where you actually look the situation in the face and walk away from it." Adrian turned to look at her. "You think I haven't closed that door?" Astapasia. "I think you slammed it shut without checking what was still inside." Her voice was gentle, not accusatory. "And now it's banging around in there and you can't figure out why you're still so angry." Adrian wanted to argue, but the words stuck in his throat. Because she was right. He was still angry, still woke up some mornings with his fists clenched and his chest tight, still caught himself thinking about Celeste and Evan Holt and wondering if they'd ever felt guilty for what they'd done. "What if seeing her makes it worse?" Adrian asked quietly. "Then it makes it worse, but at least you'll know." They sat in silence as the sun dipped behind the buildings, turning the sky orange and purple. Around them, Portland went about its evening routine. Cars passing, people walking dogs, the distant sound of a siren somewhere to the east. Finally, Adrian said, "I'll think about it." Naomi smiled a little. "That's all you can do." That night, after Liam went to bed, Adrian sat at his laptop and typed out a response to Celeste's attorney. He wrote 4 different versions, deleted 3 of them, and finally settled on something short and non-committal. "Ms. Hartwell, I received your email. I need some time to consider your client's request. I'll be in touch within the week. Adrian Vale." He hit send before he could second-guess himself, then closed the laptop and poured himself 2 fingers of whiskey he knew he wouldn't finish. The response came the next morning. "Mr. Vale, thank you for your prompt reply. Miss Laurent understands this is a difficult request and appreciates your willingness to consider it. Please don't hesitate to reach out if you have any questions. Sincerely, Jennifer Hartwell." Adrian deleted the email and tried to focus on work. The community center was entering its final phase, finishing touches, inspections, punch list items that needed addressing before the grand opening in January. He buried himself in details, measuring door frames and checking paint colors and arguing with contractors about fixtures. It didn't help. Every quiet moment, every drive home, every night after Liam fell asleep, the question came back. Should he meet Emma? Should he give Celeste the closure she was asking for? Or should he protect himself and say no? Marcus cornered him during lunch one afternoon, sliding into the booth across from Adrian at their usual sandwich shop. "You look like hell," Marcus said without preamble. "Thanks. I'm serious. You've been off for days. What's going on?" Adrian pushed his sandwich around on the plate. Celeste had the baby. Marcus's eyebrows shot up. "When?" "Few weeks ago. Her lawyer contacted me. Her lawyer, she wants me to meet the kid before she moves to Europe." "Jesus." Marcus leaned back, processing. "And you're actually thinking about it?" "I don't know what I'm thinking. Well, let me help you out." Marcus pointed at him with a French fry. "That woman destroyed you, man. She lied to your face, cheated on you, got pregnant with some other guy's kid, and now she wants you to what? Show up and play happy family for an afternoon?" "Screw that." Adrian knew Marcus meant well, but the bluntness stung. "It's not that simple." "Sure it is. You say no, you move on, and you let her deal with her own mess. She's sick, Marcus. The email said she had complications after the birth. Not your problem." Marcus's voice softened slightly. "Look, I get it. You're a good guy. You want to do the right thing, but sometimes the right thing is protecting yourself." Adrian didn't respond. He picked at his sandwich and let Marcus fill the silence with stories about his own kids, his wife, his weekend plans. Normal life things. Things that felt impossibly far away. When Adrian got home that evening, Liam was sitting at the kitchen table doing homework. Math worksheets, second grade level. He was chewing on the end of his pencil, his brow furrowed in concentration. "Hey, buddy," Adrian said, dropping his keys on the counter. "How was school?" "Fine. Just fine?" Liam shrugged. "We had a spelling test. I think I did okay." Adrian pulled a beer from the fridge and sat down across from his son. "Need help with that?" "No, I got it." They sat in companionable silence while Liam worked through subtraction problems, and Adrian watched him, feeling that familiar ache in his chest. This kid, quiet, smart, careful not to ask for too much, deserved better than what he'd been dealt. Deserved a mother who stayed, a father who wasn't walking around half-broken all the time. "Dad?" Adrian looked up. "Yeah? Do you think Mom's ever coming back?" The question landed like a punch. Adrian set his beer down carefully. "Nobody, I don't think so." Liam nodded like he'd expected that answer. "Okay. You miss her?" Liam thought about it. "Sometimes, but mostly I just miss when things were normal." Adrian reached across the table and squeezed his son's shoulder. "I know. Me too. What?" That night, after Liam was asleep, Adrian pulled out his phone and scrolled through old photos. Pictures from their wedding day. Celeste in white, radiant and untouchable. Adrian in a suit that fit wrong because he'd lost weight from stress. Pictures from their honeymoon in Hawaii, both of them tan and smiling. Pictures from last Christmas, the three of them in front of the tree, Liam holding up a new Lego set. He stopped on one photo taken about a year ago. Celeste was laughing at something off camera, her head thrown back, her hand resting on Adrian's arm. He was looking at her with an expression he barely recognized now, pure, uncomplicated adoration. He'd loved her so completely it had made him stupid. Adrian deleted the photos. Not out of anger this time, but out of necessity. Holding on to them felt like holding on to shrapnel. By Friday, Adrian still hadn't made a decision. He was sitting in his office, pretending to review blueprints, when his phone rang. Unknown number. He almost didn't answer, but something made him pick up. "Hello? Adrian?" The voice was weak, hoarse, but unmistakable. His entire body went rigid. "Celeste. I'm sorry to call. I know you probably don't want to hear from me." She coughed, and Adrian heard the rawness in it. "I got your number from Jennifer. I hope that's okay." "What do you want?" "I just..." She trailed off, and for a moment there was only the sound of her breathing. "I wanted to ask you myself about meeting Emma. I didn't want it to come through lawyers and emails." Adrian closed his eyes. "You had your lawyer reach out for a reason. Let's keep it that way." Please, just listen for a minute. I don't owe you anything, Celeste. I know. Her voice cracked. I know you don't, but I'm asking anyway. Adrian should have hung up, should have ended the call right there and gone back to his blueprints and his carefully rebuilt life. Instead, he heard himself say, I'm listening. Celeste took a shaky breath. I'm not going to make excuses for what I did. There are no excuses. I destroyed our marriage. I hurt you. I hurt Liam. I know that. And I know asking you to meet Emma is selfish. But she's here, Adrian. She exists. And before I leave the country, before I take her somewhere you'll never see her again, I wanted you to know she's real. Why does that matter? Because you deserved better than what I gave you, and I can't fix that. I can't take back the lying or the cheating or any of it, but I can give you the truth now. All of it. And maybe that's worth something. Maybe it's not. I don't know. Adrian gripped the phone tighter. The truth? You want to give me the truth now? Yes. Fine. Who's the father? Is it Evan Holt? Silence. Then quietly, yes. Does he know about Emma? He did. For about 5 minutes. Celeste's voice turned bitter. Then he told me to get an abortion and blocked my number. Haven't heard from him since. Adrian felt a grim satisfaction hearing that. So he's a coward. Yeah, he is. And you thought I'd be different? Thought I'd show up and help you clean up your mess? No. Celeste sounded tired now, defeated. I don't expect anything from you, Adrian. I just thought, I don't know what I thought, that maybe seeing her would help you let go. Help both of us let go. Adrian stood up and walked to the window, looking out over the Portland skyline. Rain was starting again, streaking the glass in gray rivulets. When? He asked. What? When do you want me to meet her? Celeste hesitated. You'll do it? I didn't say that. I asked when. See? Tomorrow, if you can. I'm being released from the hospital tomorrow afternoon and I'm flying to Paris on Monday. So tomorrow is really the only time. Where? My apartment, downtown. I can text you the address. Adrian closed his eyes. This was a mistake. He knew it was a mistake, but he couldn't make himself say no. I'll think about it, he said, and hung up before she could respond. He stood at the window for a long time, watching the rain, feeling the familiar weight of indecision pressing down on his shoulders. When he got home that evening, Naomi was sitting on his front porch. She stood up when she saw him, holding 2 takeout bags. I figured you hadn't eaten, she said. Adrian unlocked the door. You figured right. They ate Thai food at the kitchen table while Liam watched cartoons in the living room. Naomi didn't ask about the email or the decision, and Adrian didn't bring it up. They just ate and talked about the community center and upcoming inspections and nothing that mattered. Halfway through dinner, Adrian said, She called me today. Naomi looked up. Celeste? Yeah. What did she say? Adrian set down his fork. She asked me again, to meet the baby. Said it was her last chance before she leaves the country. And I told her I'd think about it. He rubbed his face with both hands. I'm going to do it, tomorrow. Naomi didn't look surprised. You sure? No, but I'm doing it anyway. Want company? Adrian looked at her. What? Want me to come with you? Not into the apartment or anything, but I could drive you there, wait in the car, just in case you need someone after. The offer caught Adrian off guard. He felt something shift in his chest, gratitude maybe, or relief at not having to face this alone. You'd do that? Of course. Adrian nodded slowly. Okay, yeah, that would be good. The next morning, Adrian dropped Liam off at his mother's house for the day. She lived in Beaverton, a small ranch-style place she'd bought after Adrian's father died. She hugged Liam tight and looked at Adrian with knowing eyes. You okay? She asked. Yeah, Ma. Just got some stuff to take care of. This about Celeste? Adrian should have known she'd figure it out. His mother had always been too perceptive for her own good. Yeah. She squeezed his arm. Be careful. I will. Naomi picked him up at noon. She was driving a beat-up Subaru Outback with Oregon Ducks bumper stickers and a bike rack on top. Adrian climbed into the passenger seat and gave her the address. They drove in silence through downtown Portland, past Powell's and the food carts and the Burnside Bridge. Celeste's apartment was in the Pearl District, a luxury high-rise with a doorman and marble floors. Naomi pulled up to the curb and put the car in park. "You ready?" "No, ishmaso." She smiled. "Good. That means you're paying attention." Adrian unbuckled his seatbelt but didn't move. "What if I can't do it? What if I get up there and just fall apart?" "Then you fall apart. And then you get back in this car and we'll go get coffee or something. But you won't know unless you try." Adrian nodded. He opened the door and stepped out onto the sidewalk, feeling the cold November air bite at his face. "Adrian?" He turned back. Naomi was leaning across the passenger seat, looking at him with an expression he couldn't quite read. "Whatever happens up there," she said, "it doesn't change anything. You're still you. You're still whole. Don't forget that." "Thanks," Adrian said, and meant it. He walked into the building, gave his name to the doorman, and took the elevator to the 12th floor. The hallway was quiet, expensive-looking, with soft lighting and abstract art on the walls. He found Celeste's apartment and stood outside the door for a full minute before knocking. Celeste answered. She looked terrible, pale, thin, dark circles under her eyes. She was wearing yoga pants and an oversized sweater, and her hair was pulled back in a messy bun, nothing like the polished, powerful woman he'd married. "Hi," she said quietly. "Hi." She stepped back, holding the door open. "Come in." The apartment was small but pristine, all white walls and modern furniture. A bassinet sat near the window, and Adrian could see a tiny bundle inside it. Celeste followed his gaze. "She's sleeping. She usually sleeps after her noon feeding." Adrian didn't move from the entryway. "How are you feeling?" "Better than I was. The doctor said I'll make a full recovery, but it'll take time." She wrapped her arms around herself. "Can I get you anything? Water? Coffee?" "No, I'm fine." An awkward silence settled between them. Adrian looked around the apartment, anywhere but at Celeste or the bassinet. Finally, she said, "Do you want to see her?" Las maori masui. Adrian's throat tightened. "I don't know." "That's okay. You don't have to." But he did. That's why he was here. He walked slowly across the room and looked down into the bassinet. Emma was tiny, impossibly small, with a tuft of dark hair and skin so pale it looked translucent. She was sleeping on her back, one fist curled near her face, her chest rising and falling in tiny breaths. Adrian felt something crack inside him. Not anger this time. Something else. Something he didn't have words for. "She looks like you," he said. Celeste came to stand beside him. "You think so?" "Yeah." They stood there together, looking down at the sleeping baby, and for a moment it felt like stepping back in time. Like they were still married, still whole, still capable of building something together. Then Emma stirred, made a small sound, and the illusion shattered. Celeste picked her up carefully, cradling her against her chest. Emma's eyes opened, dark blue, unfocused, and she yawned. "Do you want to hold her?" Celeste asked. "No." Celeste nodded, not pushing. She sat down on the couch, rocking Emma gently. Adrian stayed standing, keeping distance between them. "Why did you do it?" Adrian asked suddenly. Celeste looked up. "What?" "Why did you cheat? Why did you risk everything we had for someone who didn't even care about you?" Celeste's eyes filled with tears. "I don't know. I've asked myself that question every day since you left, and I still don't have a good answer. Try." She took a shaky breath. "I think I was scared of how much I loved you, of how much you needed me to be perfect. I never asked you to be perfect. You didn't have to. I saw the way you looked at me, like I was this untouchable thing, and I knew I couldn't live up to it." She wiped her eyes with one hand, still holding Emma with the other. "And Evan, he didn't look at me like that. He looked at me like I was human, flawed, breakable, and that felt safer somehow." Adrian felt anger rising in his chest again. Adrian felt, "So you destroyed our marriage because I loved you too much?" "No. I destroyed our marriage because I'm a coward who didn't know how to tell you I was drowning." The words hung in the air between them. Adrian wanted to yell, wanted to tell her that her pain didn't excuse what she'd done, that being scared didn't give her the right to lie and cheat and betray him. But looking at her now, exhausted, broken, holding a baby whose father had abandoned her, He couldn't find the energy. "I'm sorry," Celeste whispered. "I'm so sorry, Adrian, for all of it." Adrian turned away, walking to the window. Outside, Portland stretched out gray and wet under November clouds. Somewhere down there, Naomi was waiting in her Subaru, probably reading a book or listening to music. "I should go, John," Adrian said. "Okay." He walked to the door, then stopped with his hand on the knob. Without turning around, he said, "I hope you find whatever it is you're looking for in Paris, Adrian, and I hope Emma grows up happy. I really do." He left before Celeste could respond, taking the elevator down to the lobby and walking out into the cold afternoon air. Naomi saw him coming and unlocked the car door. Adrian climbed in, buckled his seatbelt, and stared straight ahead. "You okay?" Naomi asked gently. "Drive." She pulled away from the curb without another word. They made it 3 blocks before Adrian started crying. Not loud, not dramatic, just quiet tears that streamed down his face while he pressed his fist against his mouth. Naomi didn't say anything. She just drove, and when they hit a red light, she reached over and squeezed his hand briefly before letting go. They ended up at a coffee shop in Selwood, the same one Adrian had gone to months ago after everything first fell apart. Naomi ordered them both black coffee, and they sat in the corner booth, not talking. Finally, Adrian said, She apologized. "How'd that feel?" "Empty." He stared down at his coffee, like she was apologizing to make herself feel better, not because it would actually change anything. Probably true. "I held it together, though. I didn't yell, didn't fall apart." "That's good." Adrian looked up at Naomi. "Is it?" "Because I don't feel good. I feel like I just let her off the hook." "You didn't let her off the hook. You just didn't set yourself on fire to keep her warm." Naomi leaned back in her seat. "There's a difference." They sat in silence for a while. Then Adrian said, "Thank you for today, for being there." "Anytime." "I mean it. I don't think I could have done that alone." Naomi smiled. "Sure you could have, but I'm glad you didn't have to." Adrian picked up his coffee and took a sip. It was bitter, too strong, but he drank it anyway. Around them, the coffee shop hummed with weekend energy. Students studying, couples talking, a guy in the corner playing guitar. Normal life, the kind Adrian was slowly learning to build for himself. "You know what's weird?" Adrian said after a while. "What?" "I thought seeing her would make me angrier, but mostly I just feel sad. For her, for Emma, for all of it." "Oh, boy, that's not weird. That's growth." "Feels like grief." "It is grief. You're grieving the life you thought you'd have. That's normal." Adrian nodded slowly. "Yeah, I guess." They stayed at the coffee shop until the light outside started to fade. Then Naomi drove Adrian back to his place, pulling up in front of the house he'd bought after the divorce, a small bungalow in Selwood with a yard for Liam to play in. "You going to be okay tonight?" Naomi asked. "Yeah, I'll pick up Liam, make dinner, watch a movie, normal Saturday stuff." "Good." She put the car in park but didn't turn it off. "Call me if you need anything." "I will." Adrian climbed out of the car, then leaned back in through the window. "Hey, Naomi." "Yeah?" "You want to grab dinner sometime? Like, not work dinner, just dinner." Naomi smiled, a real smile that reached her eyes. "You asking me on a date, Vale?" "Maybe. Is that weird?" "Little bit, but I'll say yes anyway." "Yeah?" "Yeah, give me a call next week. We'll figure it out." Adrian felt something warm spread through his chest, something he hadn't felt in a long time. Hope, maybe, or just the possibility of it. "Okay," he said. "I will." He watched Naomi drive away, then walked up to his front porch and sat down on the steps. The evening air was cold, crisp, smelling like rain and wet leaves. He pulled out his phone and looked at the last message from Celeste's attorney still sitting in his inbox. He deleted it. Then he blocked Celeste's number, blocked her attorney's number, and deleted every trace of her contact information from his phone. It felt final, heavy, but also strangely freeing. Adrian stood up, brushed off his jeans, and went inside to start making dinner for his son. The weeks that followed blurred together in a way Adrian found both disorienting and strangely comforting. He settled into routines: morning coffee before Liam woke up, school drop-offs, hours at the office refining the community center details, evenings spent helping with homework and making dinners that usually involved too much pasta and not enough vegetables. Normal things, ordinary things, the kind of life he'd been building in pieces for months, except now it felt less like survival and more like actually living. He called Naomi on Tuesday, 3 days after their conversation in her car. They made plans for Friday night, nothing fancy, just dinner at a Vietnamese place in southeast Portland that Naomi claimed made the best pho in the city. "You've clearly never been to Pho Oregon on 82nd, Adrian said when she told him. "Want to bet?" "I'm not betting against someone who looks that confident." Naomi laughed. Smart man. Friday came faster than Adrian expected. He dropped Liam off at his mother's house for a sleepover, went home and stood in front of his closet for 15 minutes trying to figure out what to wear on a date with someone who'd already seen him covered in construction dust and sweat. He settled on jeans and a button-down shirt, nothing too formal, then checked his reflection in the bathroom mirror and wondered when he'd started caring about this stuff again. He picked Naomi up at 7. She lived in a small apartment in Hawthorne, above a vintage clothing store that had been there since the 70s. She came down the stairs wearing a green dress that brought out the color in her eyes, her hair loose around her shoulders instead of pulled back in the ponytail she usually wore to work sites. "You look nice," Adrian said, and immediately felt stupid for how inadequate the words sounded. "Thanks. You clean up pretty well yourself." She climbed into his truck, a beat-up Ford Ranger he'd bought used after the divorce, and buckled her seatbelt. "So where's this magical faux place you're taking me to?" "I thought we were going to your place." "We are. But you made a claim about 82nd, so now we have to test it." Adrian grinned despite himself. "You want to compare Fio restaurants?" "I want to prove you wrong. There's a difference." They ended up at both places. First Naomi's spot in Southeast, then the one Adrian had mentioned, sitting at each restaurant just long enough to order a bowl and taste it before declaring a verdict. Naomi admitted Adrian's pick was better, but only barely, and only after making him promise not to gloat about it. "I'm going to gloat a little," Adrian said as they walked back to his truck. "I knew you would." "Can't help it. Winning feels good." Naomi shoved him lightly with her shoulder. "It's pho, not the lottery." "Still counts." They drove to the waterfront and walked along the Willamette River, past joggers and cyclists and people walking dogs. The November air had turned sharp and clear, and the city lights reflected off the water in fractured gold lines. Adrian shoved his hands in his pockets and tried to remember the last time he'd done something like this. Just walked with someone. No agenda, no pressure, just existing in the same space. "Can I ask you something?" Naomi said after a while. "Sure. How are you really doing, with everything that happened last weekend?" Adrian thought about lying, giving her the easy answer. But Naomi had driven him to Celeste's apartment and sat with him afterward while he fell apart, and that earned her honesty. "I don't know," he said finally. "Some days I feel like I'm past it, like I've moved on and built something new. And then other days I wake up angry all over again, like it just happened yesterday. That's normal. Is it?" "Yeah, grief isn't linear, neither is healing." She looked out at the river. "When my ex and I split up, I spent 6 months telling everyone I was fine. And I believed it, mostly. Then one day I was at the grocery store and I saw his favorite cereal on the shelf. And I just lost it. Stood there crying in the cereal aisle like a lunatic." Adrian smiled despite the heaviness of the conversation. "What kind of cereal?" "Cap'n Crunch, the peanut butter kind." "That's a solid choice." "I know. Made it worse somehow." She shook her head. "My point is, you're allowed to have bad days. You're allowed to still be angry. It doesn't mean you're not healing." They walked in silence for a while. Then Adrian said, "I keep thinking about Emma." "The baby." "Yeah. I wonder if she's okay. If Celeste is managing. If they made it to Paris." He kicked at a loose stone on the path, which is stupid, right? It's not my problem, not my responsibility. It's not stupid, it's human. Feels stupid. Naomi stopped walking and turned to face him. "You know what I think?" "What?" "I think you're a good person who got hurt by someone who didn't deserve you." And I think you're scared that if you stop caring about what happens to them, it means you've become someone hard and cold. But that's not how it works. Adrian looked at her. This woman he'd known for less than a year, but who somehow understood him better than people he'd known his whole life. How does it work then? You get to care about them and still choose yourself. Those things aren't mutually exclusive. She started walking again, and Adrian fell into step beside her. You saw Emma, you heard Celeste out. You gave them both closure. That's more than most people would have done. Now you get to walk away and not feel guilty about it. And if I still feel guilty, then you feel guilty. But you keep walking anyway.
Bogey, Polka.
They made it back to Adrian's truck around 10. He drove Naomi home, pulled up outside her apartment, and put the car in park. Neither of them moved to get out. I had a good time tonight, Naomi said. Yeah, me too. We should do it again. Definitely. Naomi reached for the door handle, then paused. Can I ask you something else? Sure. Are you ready for this? For dating, I mean. Because if you're not, that's okay. I'd rather know now than 6 months from now, when I'm in too deep. Adrian appreciated the directness. It was one of the things he liked about her. No games, no pretense, just honest questions that demanded honest answers. I don't know if I'm ready, he admitted. But I want to try. Does that count? Naomi smiled. Yeah, that counts. She leaned across the console and kissed him. Brief, soft, nothing demanding. Then she pulled back, squeezed his hand once, and climbed out of the truck. Adrian sat in his car and watched her walk up the stairs to her apartment. His phone buzzed in his pocket. He pulled it out expecting a text from his mother about Liam, but it was an email notification instead. From Celeste's attorney. His stomach dropped. He stared at the notification for a long moment before opening it. Mr. Vale, I'm writing to inform you that my client, Celeste Laurent, passed away on November 18th due to complications from a pulmonary embolism. Funeral arrangements are being handled by her family in France. Additionally, I've been asked to contact you regarding her daughter, Emma Laurent. Miss Laurent will designate her sister, Rachel Laurent, as Emma's legal guardian. Rachel Laurent currently resides in Colorado and will be taking custody of the child. Miss Laurent left a letter for you, which I'm attaching to this email per her instructions. My condolences for your loss. Sincerely, Jennifer Hartwell, a Scrouch. Adrian read the email 3 times, each pass making it feel less real. Celeste was dead. The woman he'd loved, married, divorced, and tried desperately to stop thinking about was gone. He sat in his truck outside Naomi's apartment with the engine running and his hands gripping the steering wheel, trying to process what he was feeling. Sadness, yes, but also guilt, anger, relief, confusion. All of it tangled together into something he couldn't name. Finally, he opened the attachment. It was a scanned letter, handwritten in Celeste's careful script. Adrian, if you're reading this, then I'm gone. I'm writing this from the hospital 2 days after you came to see Emma. The doctors say I'm improving, but I don't trust my body anymore. It's failed me too many times already. I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't even expect you to care that I'm dead. But I wanted you to know that seeing you again, even for that brief moment, reminded me of who I used to be before I became someone I didn't recognize. You deserved so much better than what I gave you. Emma will be taken care of. My sister Rachel is a good person, far better than me, and she'll raise Emma with the kind of love and stability I could never provide. I've made sure they're financially secure. That's the one thing I got right. I hope you find happiness, Adrian. Real happiness, the kind that doesn't come with conditions or compromises. You've always been too good for this world, and I'm sorry I tried to dim that light in you. I'm sorry for everything. Celeste. Adrian sat in the truck reading the letter until the words blurred. Then he put his phone in his pocket, drove home, and sat in his dark living room until 3 a.m, not thinking, not crying, just existing in the heavy silence of grief. He didn't call anyone. Didn't text Naomi or Marcus or his mother. He just sat there, alone with the weight of it, until exhaustion finally pulled him under. The next morning, Adrian woke on the couch fully clothed with a headache pounding behind his eyes. Sunlight streamed through the windows, too bright, too cheerful for how he felt. He checked his phone. 9:30. 3 missed calls from his mother. He called her back. Adrian, thank goodness, I was getting worried. His mother's voice was sharp with concern. Liam's been asking for you. Are you coming to get him? Yeah, sorry, I'll be there in an hour. You sound terrible. Are you sick? Oh, no, Ma. Just didn't sleep well. Adrian, I'm fine. I'll see you soon. He hung up before she could press further. Then he showered, changed clothes, and drove to Beaverton on autopilot. His mind still stuck on Celeste's letter. His mother knew something was wrong the second she opened the door. She looked at his face, then at Liam playing in the living room, and stepped out onto the porch, pulling the door mostly closed behind her. What happened? She asked quietly. Celeste died. His mother's expression shifted, surprise, then something softer. When? A few days ago. I just found out last night. I'm sorry, honey. Adrian shrugged, like it didn't matter, even though they both knew it did. It is what it is? You going to the funeral? It's in France. I wasn't invited. His mother studied his face for a long moment. Then she pulled him into a hug, the kind of hug she used to give him when he was a kid and the world felt too big and too hard. Adrian stood there stiffly at first, then let himself lean into it, just for a second. You're allowed to grieve her, his mother said quietly, even after everything she did. You're allowed to feel sad. I know. Do you? Adrian pulled back. I don't want to talk about it, Ma. Okay, but when you do, I'm here, us. Liam came running out then, backpack bouncing on his shoulders. Dad, Grandma made pancakes, and we watched a movie about dinosaurs and… Slow down, buddy. Adrian ruffled his son's hair. Tell me in the car. The drive home was filled with Liam's enthusiastic recap of his sleepover, and Adrian was grateful for the distraction. He made the appropriate sounds at the right moments, asked follow-up questions, and tried to focus on his son's happiness instead of the hollow ache in his chest. When they got home, Adrian's phone rang. Naomi. He almost didn't answer, but he thought about what she'd said last night, about choosing himself, about walking forward anyway, and picked up. Hey. Hey, you okay? You sound off. Adrian glanced at Liam, who was unpacking his overnight bag in the hallway. Can I call you back later? Yeah, of course. Everything all right? Not really. But I'll explain later. Okay. I'm here if you need me. Adrian hung up and spent the rest of the day trying to be present for Liam. They went to the park even though it was cold, played basketball even though Adrian's heart wasn't in it, made dinner together, spaghetti with marinara sauce from a jar because Adrian couldn't manage anything more complicated. After Liam went to bed, Adrian called Naomi back. He told her about the email, the letter, all of it. She listened without interrupting, and when he finished, she said, Do you want me to come over? No, I just needed to tell someone. How are you feeling? I don't know, numb mostly. Adrian leaned back against the couch. I keep thinking I should feel more. Should be sadder or angrier or something, but mostly I just feel tired. That's okay too. Is it? Adrian, there's no right way to grieve someone who hurt you. You're allowed to feel however you feel. They talked for another hour about nothing important. Work, the weather, what movies were worth watching. Normal conversation that kept Adrian grounded, kept him from spiraling into the dark places his mind wanted to go. When they finally said goodnight, Adrian felt marginally better. Not good, but better. Like maybe he could survive this too. The next week passed in a haze. Adrian went to work, picked up Liam from school, made dinners, and kept moving forward because stopping felt too dangerous. The community center project entered its final inspection phase, which meant long days coordinating with contractors and city officials and putting out small fires that threatened the January opening. Marcus pulled him aside during a site visit on Wednesday. You've been quiet lately, Marcus said. More than usual, sais. Verbal e ditsteo. Just focused on getting this done. It's more than that. Marcus crossed his arms. Talk to me. Adrian didn't want to, but Marcus had been his friend for years, had stood by him through the divorce and its aftermath, and deserved honesty. Celeste died, Adrian said quietly. Marcus's eyes widened. What? When? Last week. Complications from the birth. Ah, Jesus, man, I'm sorry. Don't be. She made her choices. Still, that's heavy. Marcus was quiet for a moment. How's Liam taking it? I haven't told him yet. Why not? Because she left before he could really bond with her. Telling him she's dead feels like making him grieve someone he barely knew. Adrian rubbed his face. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. There's no rule book for this stuff. You do what feels right. That night, Adrian sat Liam down after dinner. They were at the kitchen table, Liam working on a drawing of a T-Rex fighting a Triceratops. Hey buddy, I need to talk to you about something. Liam looked up, immediately wary. What? It's about Celeste. Mom? Adrian winced at the word even though it was technically accurate. Yeah, she was sick after the baby was born, and she didn't make it. Liam's forehead wrinkled in confusion. What do you mean? She died, Liam. I'm sorry. Liam stared at him for a long moment, processing. Then he said, Oh. That was it. Just oh. Are you okay? Adrian asked. Liam shrugged. I guess. I didn't really know her anymore. I know, but it's still sad. Yeah. Liam went back to his drawing. Is the baby okay? Emma? Yeah. She's with Celeste's sister in Colorado. She'll be taken care of. That's good. Adrian watched his son color in the T-Rex with careful precision, seemingly unbothered by the news. Part of him was relieved that Liam wasn't devastated, that the conversation had gone easier than expected. But another part worried that this lack of reaction meant something darker, some kind of emotional damage Adrian hadn't noticed. You know you can talk to me, right? Adrian said. About anything, even if it's sad or confusing. Liam looked up. I know, Dad. Okay, good. They finished dinner in comfortable silence, and Adrian tried to tell himself that maybe kids were just more resilient than adults gave them credit for. Maybe Liam really was okay. That Friday, Naomi came over for dinner. She brought wine and helped Adrian make chicken tacos while Liam did homework at the table. It felt domestic in a way that made Adrian's chest tight. Not bad tight, just unfamiliar, like trying on clothes that almost fit but not quite. After Liam went to bed, Adrian and Naomi sat on the back porch with their wine, wrapped in blankets against the cold. The neighborhood was quiet except for the distant sound of traffic on McLaughlin Boulevard. Thanks for coming over, Adrian said. Thanks for inviting me. I wasn't sure if it was too soon. For you to be here, I mean. With Liam. Naomi smiled. You worried I'm going to scare him off? No. Worried he's going to scare you off. Not possible. I like him. Yeah? Yeah, he's a good kid. Quiet like you, but good. They sat in comfortable silence for a while. Then Naomi said, Can I ask you something? Always. What do you want? Long term, because I need to know if we're on the same page. Adrian appreciated the directness even as it made him nervous. Honestly? Honestly. I want something real, something stable. I don't need perfect or passionate or any of that fairy tale stuff. I just want someone who shows up and stays. He looked at her. What about you? Same. I'm too old for drama. Too tired for games. I just want someone who makes life better, not harder. Think we can do that for each other? Naomi reached over and took his hand. I think we can try. The following weeks settled into a rhythm that felt almost normal. Adrian and Naomi saw each other a few times a week. Dinners, hikes, movie nights with Liam. The community center opened in mid-January to a crowd of families and local politicians and reporters from the Oregonian. Adrian stood in the back of the main hall during the ribbon-cutting ceremony and felt something unfamiliar, pride maybe, or just relief that he'd actually finished something good. Marcus found him afterward, grinning. Not bad for a guy who could barely function 6 months ago. Thanks for the vote of confidence. I'm serious, man. This place is incredible. You should be proud. Adrian looked around at the families exploring the building, kids running through the gym, parents checking out the community kitchen and reading room. Yeah, I guess I am. Naomi appeared beside him, slipping her hand into his. You ready to get out of here? More than ready. They left the celebration early and drove to the coast, just the two of them, spending the weekend in a rental house in Cannon Beach. They walked the shoreline at low tide, ate overpriced seafood, and talked about the future in vague, hopeful terms. On their last night there, sitting on the deck watching the sun set over the Pacific, Naomi said, "I love you." Adrian looked at her, surprised. "Yeah? Yeah, just thought you should know." "I love you too," Adrian said, and meant it. It wasn't the desperate, all-consuming love he'd felt for Celeste. It was quieter than that, steadier. The kind of love that felt like coming home after a long day, like safety instead of freefall. They drove back to Portland on Sunday evening, and Adrian dropped Naomi off at her apartment before heading home. He found Liam asleep on the couch, his grandmother sitting in the armchair reading a book. "How was the coast?" she asked, looking up. "Good, really good." His mother studied his face. "You look happy." "I am, I think. It's about time." She stood, gathering her things. "Naomi seems like a good person." "She is. Don't mess it up," Adrian smiled. "I'll try not to." After his mother left, Adrian carried Liam upstairs to bed, then sat in his own room staring at the ceiling. He thought about Celeste's letter, about Emma growing up in Colorado, with an aunt she'd never know wasn't her mother. He thought about the community center and the families it would serve. He thought about Naomi and the life they were building together, careful and slow. He thought about how much had changed in a year, how much he'd lost and found and rebuilt from nothing. It wasn't perfect. He still woke up some mornings angry, still caught himself thinking about what might have been if Celeste hadn't lied, if Evan Holt had been a better man, if any of it had gone differently. But he was learning to live with the imperfection, learning that healing didn't mean forgetting or forgiving or any of those clean, simple things people talked about. It just meant waking up and choosing to keep going anyway. Adrian turned off the light and closed his eyes, and for the first time in a long time, he fell asleep without the weight of grief pressing down on his chest. Spring arrived in Portland the way it always did. Slowly, tentatively, like it wasn't sure it was welcome yet. The rain lightened from relentless downpour to intermittent drizzle. Cherry blossoms appeared on the trees along the streets, and people started emerging from their winter hibernation to sit at outdoor cafes and walk dogs in the parks. Adrian had been with Naomi for 4 months now, and they'd fallen into a rhythm that felt sustainable. She stayed over most weekends, kept a toothbrush at his place, had breakfast with him and Liam on Sunday mornings. Liam seemed to like her, or at least tolerate her presence without complaint, which Adrian counted as a win. One Saturday in late March, they were all at the community center for a family event. The place had become exactly what Adrian hoped it would be, a hub for neighborhood families, with after-school programs, adult education classes, a food pantry, and open gym hours. Watching kids play basketball in the space he'd designed gave him a sense of accomplishment he hadn't felt in years. Naomi was helping organize a gardening workshop in the community plot behind the building, while Adrian supervised Liam and a group of other kids painting a mural on one of the interior walls. The theme was Portland through the seasons, and the kids were enthusiastically splattering paint everywhere except the wall. Marcus showed up around noon with his wife and 2 daughters. He found Adrian trying to clean blue paint off a 7-year-old's face. "Living the dream, huh?" Marcus said, grinning. "Something like that. Seriously, though, this place is thriving. You should feel good about it." Adrian did feel good about it, mostly, but there was still a part of him that couldn't quite accept the praise, couldn't shake the feeling that he was one mistake away from everything falling apart again. Marcus's wife, Jennifer, came over with their youngest daughter on her hip. "Adrian, this is amazing. You really created something special here. Thanks. Couldn't have done it without a lot of help." "Don't sell yourself short," Jennifer said. "Marcus told me how much work you put into this. You should be proud." There was that word again. Proud. Adrian was still learning what it meant to feel that way about something he'd built. After the event wrapped up, Adrian, Naomi, and Liam grabbed dinner at a burger place near the center. They sat in a booth by the window, Liam coloring on the paper menu while they waited for their food. "That was fun today," Naomi said, stealing one of Adrian's fries even though she'd ordered her own. The kids seemed really into the mural. "Yeah, cleanup's going to be a nightmare, though." "Worth it." Liam looked up from his coloring. "Can Naomi come to the zoo with us next week?" Adrian glanced at Naomi, who raised her eyebrows slightly. They'd been careful about how much time she spent with Liam, not wanting to rush things or make the kid feel like she was trying to replace Celeste. "If she wants to," Adrian said carefully. "I'd love to," Naomi said, looking at Liam. "But only if you promise to show me the penguins. I love penguins." Liam grinned. "They're the best part." Something shifted in Adrian's chest watching them interact. It wasn't the dramatic, heart-stopping feeling he used to get with Celeste. It was quieter than that, like relief mixed with gratitude, mixed with something he didn't quite have words for. Their food arrived and they ate while Liam talked about school and his upcoming science project on volcanoes. Normal family dinner conversation, the kind Adrian had stopped believing was possible for him. Later that night, after Liam was asleep and Naomi had gone home, Adrian sat in his living room with a beer he wasn't drinking and thought about the letter from Celeste's attorney that had arrived that morning. He'd shoved it in a drawer without opening it, not ready to deal with whatever it contained. Now, in the quiet house, he pulled it out and tore it open. It was a formal notification that Celeste's estate had been settled. Her assets had been divided between Emma's trust fund and various charitable organizations. There was also a separate envelope inside with Adrian's name written in handwriting he didn't recognize. He opened it carefully. Mr. Vale, my name is Rachel Laurent. I'm Celeste's younger sister and Emma's guardian. I wanted to reach out personally to thank you for visiting Celeste before she passed. She told me about it during one of her last lucid days, and she said it gave her peace knowing you didn't hate her. I know what my sister did to you. She told me everything in the hospital, and I want you to know I don't condone any of it. But I also want you to know that she loved you, in whatever broken way she was capable of loving anyone, and she spent her last weeks regretting the choices she made. Emma is doing well. She's a happy, healthy baby, and I'm doing everything I can to give her the life Celeste couldn't. I don't know if this matters to you, but I thought you should know. If you ever want to know how Emma is doing, or if you want updates as she grows up, I'm happy to provide them. No pressure, no expectations. Just an open door if you ever need it. My contact information is below. Thank you for being kind to my sister when she didn't deserve kindness. Rachel Laurent. Adrian read the letter twice, then set it down on the coffee table and stared at it like it might explode. Part of him wanted to throw it away, close that door permanently and never think about Celeste or Emma or any of it again. But another part, the part that still woke up sometimes thinking about the baby's tiny fist curled near her face, wanted to keep it, just in case. He folded the letter carefully and put it back in the envelope, then stuck it in the drawer of his desk where he kept important documents. Not throwing it away, not acting on it, just keeping it as an option, a door he could open if he ever decided he needed to. The next week, Adrian took Liam and Naomi to the Oregon Zoo like they'd planned. It was one of those perfect spring days in Portland, sunny but not too warm, with just enough breeze to keep things comfortable. They spent hours wandering through exhibits, Liam dragging them to see every animal twice, Naomi taking pictures on her phone of Liam's excited face more than the actual animals. At the penguin exhibit, Liam pressed his face against the glass and watched the birds dive and swim with an intensity that made Adrian smile. They're so fast underwater, Liam said, his breath fogging the glass. They are, Naomi agreed, crouching beside him. Did you know they can hold their breath for up to 20 minutes? Really? Really? And some species can swim up to 22 miles per hour. Liam's eyes went wide. That's faster than Dad drives. Hey, Adrian protested. I drive the speed limit. Exactly, Liam said, grinning. Naomi laughed, and Adrian felt that shift in his chest again. Watching the two of them together, easy and comfortable, made him think that maybe this could actually work. Maybe he could build something that lasted. They got ice cream on the way out, even though it was barely 60 degrees, and Liam managed to get chocolate all over his face within 30 seconds. Adrian cleaned him up with napkins while Naomi took more pictures, laughing. You're very into documentation, Adrian said. I like capturing moments. Sue me. I'm not complaining. They drove home with Liam half asleep in the back seat, sticky and sunburned and happy. Adrian walked Naomi to her car when they got back to his place. Thanks for today, he said. He had a great time. So did I. Naomi leaned against her car door. He's a good kid, Adrian. You're doing a good job with him. I'm trying. It shows. She hesitated. Can I ask you something? Sure. Where do you see this going? Us, I mean. Adrian had been expecting this question for weeks, maybe months. Honestly? Honestly. I see it going somewhere good. I don't know exactly what that looks like yet, but I know I want you in my life. Both our lives. He glanced back at the house where Liam was probably already passed out on the couch. What about you? Same. I just wanted to make sure we were on the same page. She smiled. Because I'm falling for you, Vale, and I need to know if you're going to catch me or let me crash. Me. Adrian stepped closer and kissed her, soft and deliberate. When he pulled back, he said, I'm going to catch you. Good. She drove away, and Adrian went inside to find Liam exactly where he'd expected, sprawled on the couch, mouth open, one shoe still on. Adrian took the shoe off, covered him with a blanket, and sat down in the armchair to watch his son sleep. His phone buzzed, a text from Marcus. Marcus. Jennifer wants to have you and Naomi over for dinner next weekend. You in? Adrian. Yeah, sounds good. Marcus. Bring Liam if you want. Girls would love to see him. Adrian. Will do. Thanks. Adrian set his phone down and looked around his small living room. The secondhand furniture, the stack of Liam's library books on the coffee table, the framed photo of him and Liam at Cannon Beach from last summer. It wasn't much. Nothing like the house he'd shared with Celeste, with its expensive fixtures and designer furniture. But it was his, built from nothing after everything fell apart. The following weeks passed in a blur of work and weekend plans and gradual forward motion. Adrian took on a new project at the firm, a small residential development in southeast Portland, and threw himself into it with the same intensity he'd brought to the community center. Naomi's landscape work complemented his architectural designs perfectly, and they found themselves collaborating more and more, their professional relationship strengthening their personal one. One evening in early May, Adrian got a call from an unknown Colorado number. He almost didn't answer, but something made him pick up. Hello? Mr. Vale, this is Rachel Laurent. I hope I'm not calling at a bad time. Adrian's stomach tightened. No, it's fine. Is everything okay? Yes, everything's fine. I wanted to reach out. You never responded to my letter, and I wasn't sure if you got it or if you just weren't interested in staying in touch. I got it. I just didn't know what to say. That's understandable. Rachel's voice was warm, easier than he'd expected. I won't take up much of your time. I just wanted to let you know Emma's doing great. She's 6 months old now, starting to sit up on her own. She's got Celeste's dark hair and these big blue eyes that see everything. Adrian didn't know what to say to that. That's good. I'm glad she's healthy. Ikasa. I know this is weird, Rachel said. I know you don't owe us anything, but I thought maybe it would help to know she's okay, that she's loved. It does help, thank you. If you ever want pictures or updates, just let me know. No pressure. After they hung up, Adrian sat with the phone in his hand for a long time. Then he called Naomi. Hey. She answered on the second ring. What's up? Celeste's sister just called me about Emma. Oh, how are you feeling? I don't know. Confused, maybe. She offered to send pictures and updates. Do you want that? Adrian thought about it. Part of me does. Part of me thinks it's a terrible idea. Both parts can be true, Naomi said gently. You don't have to decide right now. I know, He trailed off, not sure how to finish the sentence. Talk to me when I see you tomorrow. I've got a site meeting in the morning, but I can come by after. Yeah, that'd be good. The next day, Naomi came over after Liam went to bed. They sat on the back porch with wine and blankets, and Adrian told her everything about the letter, the phone call, his confusion about whether to stay connected to Emma's life or let her go completely. What do you think I should do? He asked finally. Naomi was quiet for a moment. I think you should do whatever lets you sleep at night. If knowing she's okay gives you peace, then stay in touch. If it keeps you tied to the past, then let it go. That's not very helpful. I know, but it's the truth. She took a sip of her wine. For what it's worth, I don't think staying updated on a kid's life is the same as staying tied to your ex. Emma didn't do anything to hurt you. She's just a baby who exists because of choices other people made. Adrian knew she was right, but it didn't make the decision easier. What if it hurts Liam? What if he finds out I'm keeping tabs on some other kid and feels like I care more about her than him? Do you care more about her than him? Of course not. Then talk to him about it. He's 8 years old, not stupid. Give him some credit. Adrian hadn't considered that. The idea of explaining Emma to Liam felt overwhelming, like opening a door he'd worked hard to keep closed. But maybe Naomi was right. Maybe honesty was better than protection. The next evening, Adrian sat Liam down at the kitchen table after dinner. "I need to talk to you about something," Adrian said. Liam looked up from his homework, immediately wary. "What? You remember Celeste had a baby before she died?" "Emma. Yeah. Right. Well, Emma's aunt called me yesterday. She wanted to let me know Emma's doing okay, and she offered to send me updates sometimes, pictures and stuff." Liam's forehead wrinkled. Why would she do that? "I think she thought I might want to know, since I was married to Celeste." "Do you want to know?" Adrian hesitated. "I'm not sure. What do you think?" Liam shrugged. "I don't care. She's not my sister or anything." "No, she's not." "Then it doesn't matter to me." Liam went back to his homework, apparently done with the conversation. Adrian watched his son for a moment, then said, "If I do get updates, and you ever want to see pictures or hear about her, you can ask me, okay?" "Okay." That was it. No drama, no emotional breakdown, just a simple acceptance that felt almost anticlimactic. Adrian had spent days worrying about Liam's reaction, and the kid didn't even care. A few days later, Adrian sent Rachel a brief email. "Rachel, thank you for reaching out. I'd appreciate occasional updates on Emma if you're willing to share them. Nothing frequent, just knowing she's doing well would be enough." Adrian Rachel responded within an hour. "Adrian, thank you. I'll send updates every few months. I'm attaching a recent photo of Emma. She's getting so big." Rachel. Adrian opened the attachment. The photo showed a chubby baby with dark curls sitting on a blanket, grinning at the camera. She had Celeste's eyes, that same intense blue that had stopped Adrian in his tracks the first time he saw her mother across a crowded room. He looked at the photo for a long time, feeling a complicated mix of sadness and relief and something close to peace. Emma was healthy. She was loved. She would grow up not knowing the mess her mother had made, not carrying the weight of choices that were never hers to make. Adrian saved the photo in a folder on his computer labeled Emma, then closed his laptop and went to find Liam. They spent the evening building a Lego spaceship together, and Adrian tried not to think about the baby growing up in Colorado or the woman who'd broken his heart or any of the past that refused to stay buried. By June, Portland was in full summer mode. Warm days, long evenings, street festivals every weekend. Adrian and Naomi had been together for 7 months, and he'd started thinking about the future in concrete terms. Not vague possibilities anymore, but actual plans. One Saturday morning, he woke up to find Naomi already awake beside him, scrolling through her phone. "Morning," he said, his voice rough with sleep. "Morning. I was thinking." "About?" "Moving in together." Adrian propped himself up on one elbow. "Yeah? Yeah, I mean, I'm here most of the time anyway, and my lease is up in August. It seems silly to renew when I basically live here already." Adrian's heart kicked up without permission. "What about Liam? What about him? Is he ready for that? Are we ready for that?" Naomi set her phone down and turned to face him. "I think we are. But you don't have to decide right now. Just think about it. Alt?" Adrian thought about it for exactly 3 days before bringing it up with Liam. They were at the park. Liam on the swings while Adrian pushed him. "How would you feel if Naomi moved in with us?" Adrian asked, trying to sound casual. Liam dragged his feet to slow down, then looked back at his dad. "Like, all the time?" "Yeah." "Would she sleep in your room?" "Probably, yeah." Liam thought about this. "Would we have to be quiet in the mornings?" Adrian almost laughed. "Not any quieter than usual." "Then I don't care. She's nice." "Just nice?" "And she makes good pancakes." Adrian grinned. "That's true. Better than yours." "Hey now!" Liam jumped off the swing and ran toward the slide, apparently considering the conversation over. Adrian followed, feeling lighter than he had in months. That evening, he called Naomi. "So I talked to Liam," he said. "And?" He said yes. "Well, he said, you make good pancakes, which I'm pretty sure is 8-year-old code for yes." Naomi laughed. "Better than your pancakes, apparently. Everyone's a critic." Adrian paused. "I want you to move in, if you're sure." "I'm sure." "Okay then, let's do it, Sas." They spent the next few weeks planning the logistics. Naomi gave notice on her apartment, started packing her things, and slowly integrated her life with Adrian's. It wasn't seamless. They argued about cabinet space and bathroom storage, and whose furniture was staying and whose was going, but it felt real in a way Adrian hadn't experienced before. Messy and imperfect and completely honest. Rachel sent another update in mid-July. Emma was 8 months old now, crawling everywhere, getting into things she shouldn't. The photo showed her covered in what looked like mashed sweet potato, grinning like she'd accomplished something great. Adrian showed the picture to Naomi while they were unpacking boxes in their now shared bedroom. "She's cute," Naomi said, looking over his shoulder. "Yeah. You doing okay with all this? The updates, I mean." "I think so. It's weird, but not bad weird. Just weird." Naomi kissed his shoulder. "You're allowed for things to be weird." By August, Naomi was fully moved in. The house felt different, more lived in, more like an actual home instead of a temporary stop on the way to somewhere else. Her plants filled the windowsills. Her books mixed with Adrian's on the shelves. Her coffee mugs took up half the cabinet space. Liam adapted faster than Adrian expected. He liked having Naomi around, liked the way she helped with homework without making him feel dumb, liked the weekend hikes she organized, and the way she always remembered to pack extra snacks. One Sunday in late August, they were all at Sauvie Island picking berries. Liam was ahead of them, staining his fingers purple with blackberries while Adrian and Naomi followed at a slower pace. "This is nice," Naomi said, her hand linked with Adrian's. "Yeah, it is." "You happy?" Adrian thought about it. Not the easy, reflexive answer, but actually considered the question. Was he happy? Not the way he'd been happy with Celeste. That desperate, fragile happiness that depended on everything staying perfect. This was different, quieter, built on a foundation that felt solid instead of beautiful. "Yeah," he said finally. "I think I am." Naomi squeezed his hand. "Good. Me too, Shachwata." That night, after Liam was asleep and they were cleaning up the kitchen together, Adrian's phone rang. Unknown number again, but he recognized the Colorado area code. "It's Rachel," he told Naomi, then answered. "Hello?" "Adrian, hi. I'm sorry to call so late. Something happened and I thought you should know." Adrian's stomach dropped. "Is Emma okay?" "She's fine. She's perfect. It's not about her, really. It's about Evan Holt." Adrian hadn't heard that name in months. Hearing it now felt like being punched. "What about him?" "He showed up at my house last week. He wants to meet Emma, says he's been thinking about her, that he made a mistake walking away." Rachel's voice was tight with anger. "I told him to leave, that he gave up any right to her when he told Celeste to get an abortion. But he's threatening to lawyer up, claim parental rights. Can he do that?" "Maybe. I don't know. My attorney says it's complicated because his name isn't on the birth certificate, but he could petition for a paternity test and go from there." Adrian felt rage building in his chest. The same rage he'd felt when he first found out about the affair, about Emma, about all of it. "What do you need from me?" "Nothing. I just thought you should know. In case he tries to contact you or something." "He won't. We've never met." "Still, I wanted you in the loop." Rachel paused. "I'm not going to let him anywhere near her, Adrian. She's my daughter now. He doesn't get to show up when it's convenient and play dad." "Good. Don't let him." Adrian took a breath, trying to calm down. "Keep me updated, okay? And if you need anything, a character witness, whatever, I'm here." "Thank you. That means a lot." After they hung up, Adrian stood in the kitchen with his phone in his hand, shaking with adrenaline. Naomi touched his arm gently. "What happened?" He told her everything, about Evan Holt showing up, about the threat of legal action, about Rachel's promise to fight him. "That's awful," Naomi said. "Is there anything you can do?" "I don't know. Probably not. But if that bastard thinks he can just waltz back in after abandoning them." Adrian couldn't finish the sentence. Naomi pulled him into a hug. "It's not your fight, Adrian. I know. But you want it to be." "Yeah, I do." They stood like that for a long time, Adrian's anger slowly cooling into something more manageable. Finally, Naomi pulled back and looked at him. "Whatever happens with Emma and Evan, it doesn't change what we're building here. You know that, right? Adrian nodded. I know. Good, because I'm not going anywhere. Promise? Promise. The custody battle over Emma dragged on for 3 months, and Adrian watched it unfold from a distance like a car crash he couldn't look away from. Rachel sent him updates every few weeks, court filings, mediation attempts, Evan Holt's lawyer making arguments about paternal rights and second chances. Each email made Adrian's blood boil a little hotter. In late October, Rachel called him on a Tuesday evening. Adrian was helping Liam with a book report at the kitchen table while Naomi made dinner. Adrian, I need to ask you something, Rachel said without preamble. And you can absolutely say no. What is it? My attorney thinks it would help our case if we had testimony from someone who knew Celeste and knew what Evan did to her, someone who could speak to his character, or lack of it. She paused. Would you be willing to give a deposition? You'd have to fly to Denver, meet with my lawyer, go on record about what happened. Adrian's first instinct was to say no, to protect himself and his family from getting dragged back into the mess. But then he thought about Emma, that tiny baby with Celeste's blue eyes, growing up in Colorado with an aunt who loved her. And he thought about Evan Holt showing up after abandoning them both, trying to claim rights he'd forfeited the second he told Celeste to get an abortion. Yeah, Adrian said. I'll do it. Are you sure? I know it's asking a lot, and I'm sure. Just tell me when and where. After he hung up, Naomi turned from the stove. You're going to Denver? Looks like it. When? I don't know yet. Soon, probably. Naomi wiped her hands on a dish towel and came to sit beside him at the table. You okay with this? I have to be. No, you don't. You could say no. Adrian shook his head. That guy doesn't get to walk away and then come back when it's convenient. Someone needs to tell the truth about what he did. Marpon. Liam looked up from his book report. Who's coming back? No one, buddy. Just adult stuff. Is it about Emma? Adrian was still getting used to how perceptive his son could be. Yeah, it's about Emma. Is someone trying to take her away from her aunt? Something like that. Liam thought about this for a moment. That's mean. Her aunt takes care of her. I know. That's why I'm trying to help. Okay. Liam went back to his book report. Apparently satisfied with the explanation. Adrian flew to Denver the first week of November. Naomi wanted to come with him, but someone needed to stay with Liam, and Adrian's mother wasn't available. So he went alone, taking a morning flight that put him in Colorado by noon. Rachel picked him up at the airport. She was younger than he'd expected, early 30s with Celeste's dark hair but softer features, less sharp. She hugged him like they were old friends instead of strangers connected by tragedy. Thank you for doing this, she said as they walked to her car. I know it's not easy. It's fine. I want to help. They drove to a coffee shop near downtown Denver, and Rachel filled him in on the details. Evan's lawyer was arguing that he'd had a change of heart, that he deserved a chance to be part of Emma's life. Rachel's lawyer was countering that abandoning a pregnant woman and then reappearing a year later didn't constitute a change of heart, just convenience. The judge seems sympathetic to us, Rachel said. But Evan's got money and a good lawyer. It's not a slam dunk. What do you need from me specifically? Just tell the truth. Tell them what Celeste told you, what you know about how he treated her. Your deposition carries weight because you were married to her, because you saw the aftermath of what he did. Adrian nodded. When's the deposition? Tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. That evening, Rachel invited Adrian to her house for dinner. It was a modest ranch-style place in a quiet suburb, nothing fancy but comfortable. Emma was there, now 13 months old and walking, or more accurately, toddling around the living room while grabbing furniture for support. Emma, this is Adrian, Rachel said, crouching down to the baby's level. Can you say hi? Emma stared at Adrian with those familiar blue eyes, then buried her face in Rachel's shoulder. She's shy with strangers, Rachel explained. That's okay. They ate dinner while Emma sat in her high chair, throwing Cheerios on the floor and babbling in nonsense syllables that occasionally sounded like words. Adrian watched her and felt that same complicated ache he'd felt the first time he saw her in Celeste's apartment. Grief mixed with relief, mixed with something protective he had no right to feel. After Emma went to bed, Adrian and Rachel sat in the living room drinking coffee. She looks happy, Adrian said. She is. She doesn't know any different, you know. To her, I'm just mom. She'll never remember Celeste. Is that hard for you? Rachel was quiet for a moment. Sometimes. I want her to know who her mother was. The good parts, anyway. But I also don't want her carrying Celeste's mistakes. Does that make sense? Yeah, it does. Celeste wasn't a bad person, Rachel said softly. She was just broken in ways she couldn't fix, and she hurt a lot of people because of it. Adrian knew that was true, but it didn't make the hurt less real. Did she ever talk about me? After the divorce? All the time. She regretted what she did to you more than anything else. Said you were the best thing that ever happened to her and she'd destroyed it. Rachel looked at him. I think that's why she wanted you to meet Emma. She wanted you to know she was capable of creating something good, even if she screwed up everything else. Adrian didn't know what to say to that. He stared down at his coffee and tried to imagine a version of Celeste who regretted her choices, who wanted redemption. It was hard to reconcile that with the woman who'd lied to his face for months. I'm not asking you to forgive her, Rachel said. I'm just telling you what I know. I appreciate it. Oh. The deposition the next morning was harder than Adrian expected. Evan's lawyer was sharp, aggressive, trying to poke holes in Adrian's testimony by questioning how much he really knew about Celeste's relationship with Evan, whether he was just a bitter ex-husband trying to sabotage a father's rights. Mr. Vale, isn't it true that you were sterile, and therefore had a vested interest in preventing Miss Laurent from having a relationship with the biological father of her child? Adrian kept his voice steady. I didn't prevent anything. Evan Holt made his choice when he told Celeste to terminate the pregnancy and then blocked her number. I'm just here to tell you what she told me. And what exactly did she tell you? That he abandoned her the second the pregnancy became inconvenient. That he wanted nothing to do with Emma. That she was alone and scared and he didn't care. Adrian looked directly at Evan's lawyer. A man who walks away doesn't get to walk back when it suits him. The lawyer tried several more angles, but Adrian didn't budge. He answered every question honestly, laid out the timeline of events, made it clear that Evan had made his choice and now had to live with it. When the deposition ended, Rachel's attorney pulled Adrian aside. That was good, she said. Really good. You gave us exactly what we needed. Will it be enough? I think so, but we won't know for sure until the judge rules. Adrian flew back to Portland that evening. Naomi picked him up at the airport, and he filled her in on everything during the drive home. How do you feel? She asked. Tired, angry, I don't know. Did you see Emma? Yeah, she's walking now, talking a little. And it was hard, but I'm glad I went. Naomi reached over and squeezed his hand. You did a good thing. We'll see. 2 weeks later, Rachel called with the news. The judge had ruled in her favor. Evan Holt's petition for parental rights was denied. He could request supervised visitation once Emma was older, but he had no legal claim to custody or decision-making. We won, Rachel said, her voice thick with relief. We actually won. That's great, Rachel. I'm happy for you, and merci. I couldn't have done it without you. Your testimony made the difference. I just told the truth. Still, thank you. She paused. Emma's lucky to have people like you looking out for her, even from a distance. After they hung up, Adrian told Naomi and then went to check on Liam, who was in his room building something elaborate with Legos. Adrian sat on the edge of the bed and watched his son work, feeling a strange mix of satisfaction and sadness. Everything okay, Dad? Liam asked without looking up. Yeah, buddy, everything's okay. You seem quiet. Adrian smiled. Just thinking. About what? About how lucky I am to have you. Liam looked up then, his face scrunching in confusion. That's weird. Maybe, but it's true. Thanksgiving came and went. Adrian, Naomi, and Liam spent it at his mother's house with Marcus and his family. They ate too much turkey, watched football, and argued about whether pumpkin pie was better than pecan. Normal family chaos, the kind Adrian had stopped taking for granted. On the drive home, Liam fell asleep in the back seat, and Naomi dozed against the window. Adrian drove through the quiet Portland streets and thought about how much had changed in 2 years, how he'd gone from broken and bitter to something approaching whole. It wasn't perfect. He still had days where the anger crept back in, where he thought about Celeste and Evan and all the ways his life could have been different. But mostly, he just felt grateful. For Liam, for Naomi, for the community center and the work that gave his life meaning. For the fact that he had survived something that could have destroyed him and come out the other side still capable of love. December arrived with cold rain and early darkness. Adrian and Naomi started talking seriously about marriage. Not in a rushed way, just honest conversations about what they wanted their future to look like. Naomi wanted a small wedding, just family and close friends. Adrian wanted whatever made her happy. They agreed to wait until spring, give themselves time to plan something simple and meaningful. Rachel sent Christmas photos of Emma, now 15 months old, wearing a red velvet dress and looking at the camera with curious suspicion. Adrian showed the picture to Liam. "She's getting big," Liam said. "Yeah, she is. Do you think we'll ever meet her?" Adrian hadn't considered that possibility. "I don't know, maybe someday. Would you want to?" Liam shrugged. "I guess. She's kind of like family, right?" "Kind of. It's complicated." "Everything's complicated with you, Dad." "Hiss." Adrian laughed. "Fair point." On Christmas Eve, after Liam went to bed, Adrian and Naomi sat by the tree they decorated together. A slightly crooked Douglas fir covered in mismatched ornaments and too many lights. Naomi had her feet tucked under her on the couch, a mug of hot chocolate balanced on her knee. "I've been thinking," she said. "About?" "About what you said once. About not knowing if you were ready to date, but wanting to try anyway." "I remember, but I'm glad you tried." She looked at him over the rim of her mug. "I'm glad we both tried." "Me too." "I love you, Adrian. Not in spite of all the messy, complicated stuff. Just all of it. The whole package." Adrian set his own mug down and pulled her closer. "I love you too. More than I thought I could love anyone again." "What?" They sat like that for a while, watching the tree lights blink on and off in their random pattern. Then Naomi said, "Do you ever regret it? Meeting Celeste, I mean. Do you wish you'd never gone through all of that?" Adrian thought about it honestly. "Sometimes, when I'm angry or when I think about what it did to Liam, but mostly no. Why not?" "Because it brought me here, to you, to this life." He looked around the living room, the mismatched furniture, the stack of Liam's drawings on the coffee table, Naomi's plants crowding the windowsill. "I wouldn't trade this for anything, not even to avoid the pain." "That's very zen of you." Adrian smiled. "I'm learning." Ipo. The new year came quietly. Adrian and Naomi went to a small party at Marcus's house, drank champagne at midnight, and drove home through empty streets while Liam slept in the back seat. Adrian thought about resolutions but couldn't think of any he needed to make. He was already doing the work, showing up for his family, building something stable, choosing forward motion over stagnation. In February, Rachel sent an email with an unusual request. She and Emma were planning a trip to the Pacific Northwest in April, visiting friends in Seattle. Would Adrian want to meet up? Nothing formal, just coffee or a walk in the park. No pressure if he wasn't ready. Adrian showed the email to Naomi. "What do you think?" he asked. "What do I think, or what do you think?" "Both." Naomi set down the dish she was washing. "I think you should do whatever feels right. If you want to see Emma, see her. If you're not ready, that's okay too." "Would it bother you if I met up with them?" "No. Why would it?" "I don't know. Because it's connected to Celeste?" Naomi turned to face him fully. "Adrian, I'm not threatened by your past. I'm not in competition with a dead woman. Emma is just a kid who exists because of choices other people made. If you want to know her, I support that. And if I don't, I support that too." Adrian thought about it for 2 days before responding to Rachel. He agreed to meet them in Portland for an afternoon in late April, somewhere neutral and public, somewhere he could leave if it felt like too much. When he told Liam about it, his son's response was predictably straightforward. "Can I come?" "You want to?" "I don't know, maybe. She's kind of my sister, right?" "Not technically, but kind of." Then yeah, I want to come." April arrived with cherry blossoms and longer days. The meeting was set for a Saturday afternoon at Laurelhurst Park. Adrian drove there with Naomi and Liam, his stomach tight with nerves he couldn't quite explain. Rachel was already there, sitting on a bench near the playground with Emma in a stroller. When she saw Adrian, she waved and stood up. Adrian, thank you for coming. Of course. Adrian gestured to Naomi and Liam. This is Naomi, and this is my son Liam. Rachel shook Naomi's hand, then crouched down to Liam's level. Hi, Liam. I've heard a lot about you. Liam looked at Emma, who was straining against her stroller straps and babbling loudly. Is that Emma? It is. Want to meet her? Bots. Rachel unbuckled Emma and set her down on the grass. The toddler immediately took off toward the playground at a wobbly run, and Rachel followed, calling over her shoulder, She's fast. Fair warning. Adrian, Naomi, and Liam followed at a slower pace. They spent the next hour watching Emma play, climbing on the equipment with Rachel hovering nervously, going down the slide on her stomach, chasing birds with delighted shrieks. Liam warmed up to her quickly. He showed her how to go down the slide the right way, helped her climb the steps, made her laugh by making silly faces. Adrian watched them together and felt something shift in his chest. Not quite love, but something adjacent to it. A recognition that this little girl was connected to him through circumstances neither of them had chosen, and that maybe that was okay. At one point, Emma toddled over to Adrian and held up her arms. He looked at Rachel, who nodded encouragingly. Adrian picked her up, and Emma immediately grabbed his nose and pulled. Gentle, Emma, Rachel said, laughing. Emma ignored her, now grabbing Adrian's ear instead. He winced, but didn't pull away. She studied his face with intense concentration, like she was trying to figure out who he was and why he looked familiar. She has Celeste's eyes, Naomi said softly, coming to stand beside Adrian. Yeah, she does. After a while, Emma got bored and wiggled to be put down. Adrian set her on the grass, and she ran off toward Liam again. Rachel came over, looking relieved. Thank you for this, she said. I know it's weird. It is weird, Adrian agreed, but I'm glad we did it. Does this mean you want to stay in touch? See her again? Adrian looked at Emma playing with Liam, both of them laughing about something only kids found funny. Yeah, I think I do. Not all the time, but sometimes. That's all I'm asking for. They exchanged numbers and made vague plans to meet up again in a few months. When it was time to leave, Liam gave Emma a high five that she missed completely, then waved goodbye. In the car on the way home, Liam said, She's funny. Yeah? She kept trying to eat wood chips. Who eats wood chips? Naomi laughed. Most toddlers, actually. That's weird. Welcome to little kids, buddy, Adrian said. That evening, after Liam was in bed, Adrian and Naomi sat on the back porch. The air was warm for April, smelling like flowers and fresh-cut grass. How are you feeling about today? Naomi asked. Good. Better than I expected, actually. Think you'll keep seeing her? Maybe. Once in a while. I don't want to be her dad or anything, but I can be. I don't know. A friendly adult who checks in sometimes. I think that's healthy. Adrian reached for Naomi's hand. Thank you. For what? For not making this weird, for understanding why I needed to do it. Of course. I love you, Adrian, all of you, including the complicated parts. They sat in comfortable silence, listening to the neighborhood settle into evening. Then Adrian said, I want to marry you. Naomi turned to look at him. I know. We've been planning a wedding for months. No, I mean, I want to marry you now, soon. I don't want to wait until spring. Why the rush? Because I'm tired of waiting for things to be perfect before I commit to them. I'm tired of being scared that everything's going to fall apart. He squeezed her hand. I want to choose this. Choose us. Now. Naomi smiled. Okay. Okay? Yeah, let's do it. Let's get married. They got married 3 weeks later at the community center Adrian had designed. It was small and simple, just family and close friends, Marcus officiating because he'd gotten ordained online as a joke years ago and never expected to use it. Liam was the ring bearer, taking his job so seriously he walked down the aisle like he was carrying nuclear codes instead of 2 simple gold bands. Adrian's mother cried. Marcus's wife took too many pictures. The whole thing lasted 20 minutes, and when it was over, Adrian kissed his wife and felt something settle in his chest that had been restless for years. At the reception afterward, catered tacos from a local food cart and a playlist Naomi had spent weeks perfecting, Adrian stood to give a toast. He wasn't good at public speaking, But he'd written something down and figured he owed it to everyone there to try.
I'm not great at this, he started, his voice shaky. But I wanted to say something about what this day means to me.
The room quieted. Liam was sitting at the kids' table with Marcus's daughters, watching his dad with curious eyes. 2 years ago, my life fell apart. I lost my marriage, lost my faith in people, lost pretty much everything I thought I'd built. And for a while, I was just broken, angry, convinced I'd never trust anyone again. He looked at Naomi, who was watching him with tears in her eyes. But then I met this person who showed me that starting over doesn't mean forgetting what happened. It means building something new with the pieces you have left. And she was patient with me while I figured that out. Patient with my anger and my fear and all the baggage I brought into this relationship. Adrian took a breath. I think we spend a lot of time as a society talking about finding the perfect person, the perfect love, the perfect life. But that's not real. Real is messy. Real is two broken people deciding to be broken together and figuring out how to build something good anyway. He raised his glass. So here's to messy. Here's to imperfect. Here's to choosing each other every day, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. Everyone raised their glasses and drank. Naomi stood up and pulled Adrian into a hug, and he held her tight while their friends and family cheered. Later that night, after everyone had gone home and Liam was asleep at his grandmother's house, Adrian and Naomi sat in the empty community center hall, surrounded by leftover decorations and dirty dishes. We should clean this up, Naomi said, not moving. We should, Adrian agreed, also not moving. They sat there in the quiet, holding hands, neither of them in any hurry to leave. Adrian thought about everything that had led to this moment, the betrayal and the grief and the slow, painful work of rebuilding. He thought about Celeste and Emma and Evan Holt and all the people whose choices had shaped his life in ways he never asked for. And he thought about the fact that he'd survived it. More than survived. He'd built something real and honest and worth protecting. You know what I learned through all of this? Adrian said finally. What? That betrayal can destroy the life you planned. But sometimes that's exactly what needs to happen. Sometimes you need everything to fall apart so you can build the life you were actually meant to live. Naomi leaned her head on his shoulder. That's very wise. I have my moments. You do. They sat there for another hour, talking about nothing and everything, making plans for a honeymoon they couldn't afford, and a future they were building one choice at a time. And when they finally stood up to clean the hall, Adrian felt lighter than he had in years. Not because he'd forgotten the past or forgiven everyone who'd hurt him, but because he'd learned something that changed everything. You don't have to let the worst thing that ever happened to you define the rest of your life. You can acknowledge the pain, carry the scars, and still choose joy. Still choose love. Still choose to keep building. 6 months later, Rachel sent photos of Emma's second birthday party. The little girl was covered in cake frosting, grinning at the camera with that same mischievous expression Celeste used to get when she was up to something. Adrian showed the picture to Naomi and Liam over breakfast. She looks happy, Liam said. She does. Are we going to see her again? Maybe, if her aunt brings her out west again. Cool. Liam went back to his cereal, already moving on to the next thought. Adrian saved the photo on his phone, then put it away. He didn't need to look at it constantly or obsess over what Emma's life would be like. He just needed to know she was okay, that she was loved, that the cycle of pain had stopped with her. That was enough. That evening, Adrian stood in the community center watching a group of teenagers play basketball while their parents sat in the community room planning a neighborhood cleanup day. This place, this building he'd designed from nothing when his own life was in pieces, was exactly what he'd hoped it would be. A space where broken people could come together and build something better. Naomi found him standing there and slipped her hand into his. Ready to go home? She asked. Yeah, let's go home. They walked out into the Portland evening, past the murals the kids had painted and the gardens they'd planted together, and Adrian felt something he'd never quite felt before. Not happiness exactly, because happiness was too simple a word for something this complex. But peace. The kind of peace that comes from knowing you've done the work, faced the hard truths, and chosen to keep building anyway. The kind of peace that doesn't require perfection or closure or any of those clean endings people search for. Just the quiet satisfaction of showing up every day and choosing the life you have instead of mourning the one you lost. And for Adrian Vale, single father, architect, survivor of betrayal, that was more than enough. It was everything.